So my name is Rachel Cornah. I'm a mine geologist, and I've been invited here to help judge your posters and presentations, but also to give you a presentation on my career as a geologist and hopefully inspire some of you to go on and pursue a career in geology and maybe even mining. So where did it all begin for me? How did it start? So I was born to two parents who were both teachers. So maybe they were my first teachers that inspired me, and they both had an interest in geology. My dad was an amateur geologist, so I spent a lot of my childhood foraging around in disused quarries looking for fossils. And his family were from North Staffordshire coalfields, so I guess mining was in the blood from a long time ago. So here is miners, is there a pointer? In North Staffordshire, and then this is me at work with one of my drillers in the Pilbara, which is in Western Australia. So how did I get there? So I grew up in Birmingham, and I was lucky enough to go to a sixth form college that offered geology as a subject, which was very unusual then. Probably is even more unusual now, which is such a shame. So I was really good at geography, and I was not as good, but still okay at geology and not very good at chemistry. But those are my A-level subjects that I chose. But I managed to get the grades to go to university in Leeds, where I studied geography and geology. Because at that stage, I couldn't quite decide between the two. So I went off to Leeds and did 1 year of geography and geology, and didn't really feel that I belonged to geology, and I didn't really feel that I belonged to geography. And I didn't really enjoy the physical aspects of geography. So after my first year, I changed to do pure geology, and I continued on in my studies, and really enjoyed that. We were a very small number of students. We were very tight cohorts. And because we did a lot of lab work and you spent a lot of time in the field, it's a very contact kind of subject. I have really strong relationships and quite a community within our cohort, and that has been something that I've experienced throughout my career. So it's really nice because it's a very small industry, but also beware, because you don't want to make too many enemies early on. So I did that, and we went on some really cool field trips. So back in my A-level days, we went to Iceland, which is very good fun, and Santorini. Peter, I think, showed a picture of some, so we went to the volcanic islands off Sicily. And then at Leeds, Wales, northwest Scotland, and I spent 2 months mapping in the southern French Alps as part of my dissertation. And then I finished that, and I just had enough of studying and geology, kind of fell out of love with geology. So I went back home, did various temp jobs, and then earned enough money to go travelling. So spent a year travelling around Southeast Asia and geology. And then after doing lots of reception type jobs and bar work, realised that maybe I should use my degree, and ended up in Perth, which is in Western Australia. And mining exists there, which it doesn't really so much in the UK, and happened across lots of people who were geologists. Tried to get a job over there, but my visa was coming to the end, and the advice that I was given was go back to the UK and do masters, and then come back. So that's what I did. So I went back to England and applied for a couple of masters. So I got accepted onto the engineering geology course back at Leeds, and I got accepted onto the mine geology course at Camborne School of Mines, which is down in Cornwall, not too far away from the Truro guys, wherever you've gone. There you go. And basically, Camborne offered me a full scholarship, and Leeds only offered me half. So I decided to go down to Cornwall, which was fantastic. So again, an even smaller cohort. There were only 16 of us, and we had a really good time. So again, lots of contact, lots of field trips. We went on field trips every week. We went to Western Australia, to Kalgoorlie, to the goldfields on our field trip. And as part of my dissertation, I spent 6 months working at a gold mine in northern Sweden. So what I also wanted to kind of get across is how I've got into the positions that I've got into. And a lot of it, well, most of it has been through hard work, but some of it is also through chance. So I had a dissertation planned. I was going to be working as an analyst for a financial institution, and the project didn't quite happen, and I had to stop my dissertation the next week, and I didn't have anything. And I was in my lecturer's office, and a phone call came in from one of the old boys saying, "We need someone in northern Sweden next week. Do you have anyone?" And I was there, and I thought, yeah, why not? So I ended up in northern Sweden at Beutel gold mine, which is up here. So the Arctic Circle is about here. So I got on a plane to Stockholm, down here. And my mum warned me and she said, yeah, just be prepared that there might not be too much there and it might be a bit rough and ready. But when I got there, flew into Stockholm, and then I thought I was going to be getting on a little tiny aeroplane up to the north. But it was a massive 747. I arrived there was a H&M, there was a nightclub. So it wasn't as bad. So got picked up, had a company flat, a company car, and worked at a gold mine. So that there is a piece of visible gold, which is really, really unusual. So I was very lucky in my first job as a mine geologist to actually see gold. Many gold geologists spend their whole career and never actually physically see gold in a specimen. And that's the pit, just here. And they're now gone underground. So I did my project there in resource estimation, which you probably don't touch upon in A-levels. So that's where you use computer simulations, you use your drill holes and you work out what the average grades are for your deposit, and that's what you use to mine. So I did that for 6 months, and then they offered me a job as a mine geologist. So there I was, and I had lots of fun there. Really weird place, as in the summer, basically 24 hours of daylight and quite warm and pleasant, and then in the winter, not much hours of daylight. So in the depths of winter, the sun didn't go over the top of the pit, and we had these beautiful ice waterfalls. So that's me down at the bottom, and you knew it was really, really cold, so -30, -40 when your eyelashes froze. So got stuck in doing a bit of around site exploration and also spent some time in the lab. So another thing I've always tried to do throughout my career is look at what other people do to try and really understand holistically what everybody is doing, what's happening. So I did a year there, and the gold price was in the doldrums, and they didn't need me anymore, so I got made redundant. But I didn't get payouts, and I was so young and naive that I didn't realise that I could. So ended back in the UK, and I worked for a company called Mattech, and they liked me because I had some on-site experience. So these guys provide mining software to the mining industry. So I worked there based originally in Nottingham, and then ended up opening up an office in Edinburgh, and then I went out with them to West Australia and travelled all over Europe, North America, West Australia, Eurasia with them. So that's me underground in Morocco with my colleagues. And that's me in Moscow, where we had Barrick had a gold project there. So I got to do lots of cool stuff with them. Went over to West Australia, and then ended up working for Rio Tinto, which is, I think at the moment, the second biggest mining company in the world. So, and they wanted me because of my Vulcan experience and because I had site experience previously. So I worked there for many years in various roles. I went there to help with their mine geology systems, so setting up new systems around innovation. So we input loggers that we implemented into the business. And I also did some stints as a mine geologist. So that's me. So a mine geologist. So what does a mine geologist do? I only ever have worked open pits. There are also underground mine geologists. Their role is slightly different, but basically the same. So there I am what we call cutting a cone. So a blast rig, which looks like that, goes along and creates a pattern. So it creates lots of holes in the ground, and it spews up a pile here that gives you the information that's in the ground. So one of your roles as a mine geologist is to go along, cut through that, and then log it. So what sequences of rocks can you see? You also, here it was quite easy to see, this one is really, really dark grey. This is red. That's waste. This is ore. So you can also walk along a pattern and you can see quite clearly, this is ore, this is waste. You also take samples of this, and then that is what gives you your assay. So what is the grade of that? Then you go back to the office, colour it in on Vulcan, or as some kind of software, and then you what's called do a block out. So basically you run a calculation on it to give you your average grade and tonnage that you expect. Then that feeds on into the plant. You'll get some feedback from the plant, whether you've made a good calculation or not, and that feeds back to you, and you do your reconciliation. So I did some time there, and then I ended up being hydrogeology superintendent, and that was basically because I said yes. I was looking for something different, and nobody else wanted the role because it was really, really hard. And I was quite naive again, and just thought, why not? It can't be that bad. And it was a really, really good experience. So with that, I had to use all the skills I've had so far with dealing with people, negotiating, trying to influence people, because I didn't have much power in terms of an organisational structure, but we had massive projects that we had to deliver, and how are we going to do that? So I worked there for many years. So these are just a few kind of pictures of what it looks like to work on a mine and to be in a mine. So basically, we fly up and down. Was there a picture of? Yeah, so that's where I used to work when I lived in Perth. This is Tom Price mine, one of our biggest mines. And then this is Perth down here, and this is the Pilbara region up here. So basically, so my team, they were shift workers, so they would fly up from Perth up to here, and we would use aeroplanes probably quite badly, like a bus. So we'd get up in the morning, go on an aeroplane, go up to site, and then drive to a mine site or an exploration camp. And this is what a mine site looks like. So they're actually really, really quite comfortable and quite nice. So this is Yandikajina. And this is in a drilling site, what it looks like. So this is the airport. These are the airplanes that we'd go up onto. This was the Paraburdoo Airport. And these are our drill rigs. These are our drill patterns. So quite remote work. And that's me standing next to a driller. So if you are working on site, typically you'd start work at 6 o'clock in the morning. So you would get up from your little donga, which is demountable. So it's quite comfortable. You get your own ensuite, you have a TV, your beds, and then you would go to the mess, and you would have your breakfast, and then you would also get your crib, your lunch, and then you would head off. That's the wet mess. So that's where you could get a drink in the evening, and gyms, and usually swimming pools. So you get your breakfast, get your lunch, and head off to your morning meetings, which usually start at about 6. And then you would plan out what you were doing for the rest of the day. And then you would go off to your location where you were going to work. And then you would probably come back to an office, probably around 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. And you would do that for anywhere between 5 to 6 days to 2 weeks. And then you'd fly back down to Perth, and then you would have some R&R, some rest and relaxation. So what did I do after that? So I spent 7 or 8 years working for Rio Tinto in Perth, and then had a career break, and then came back to the UK, and I worked for a small consultancy based in Oxfordshire. And I've been working on Hinkley Point, which one of the projects mentions, helping them with the optimisation of their deep dig, because they were trying to create a massive hole, and they realised that mining people may be able to help them to do that with their designs. Also done some project evaluation on some sites in Sri Lanka and in South Africa. So that's my career in geology, and actually now, at the moment, I'm currently working for the civil service as a project manager. So very different, but actually quite transferable skills. So as a geologist, it's not just about knowing how to identify a rock or knowing what a mineral is. That's actually quite a small part of it. There's a lot of talking with people, negotiating with people, dealing with people, and that can help you in what you do in the future. There are also many facets of geology, which I'm sure some of the other presenters will talk to you about. So that could be a volcanologist, you could be a paleontologist, you could be a hydrogeologist, you could be a geostatistician, you could be interested in ice core. So what does the future look like for me? I still am a geologist at heart, and I really, really like mining, and I'd really like to get back into mining. I would still like to have an international flavour to my career, but I don't have to, because there's lots of mining activity happening or about to happen in the UK. So now is actually a really, really good time to get into geology, into mining, and join the renaissance of mining that is happening in the UK. So these are just a few of the projects that are happening at the moment. I think that's it. Hope I didn't overrun.